Hey, Unchainers! This is Timmert, and you're listening to the Unchaining Me podcast. Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the third season of the Unchaining Me podcast. I'm very happy and in a very great upbeat mood today, dancing around in the studio. I will be talking about one of my favorite things to talk about. Before I go there, I'd like to say welcome. Thank you for deciding to tune in. If this is your first time, welcome to the Unchaining Me platform, to the podcast specifically. This is a great space. I'm biased, but I'd like to believe that it's a great space for your transformation, your personal development journey, wherever on that journey that you may be. I believe you will find something that is going to help you and support you along the way. Please go ahead and listen to the past episodes. Please go ahead, give it a rating once you've listened to the episodes. And also really for everybody listening, if you have, especially if you have an iPhone and you're listening to me on Apple Podcasts, please take a minute to go give it 5 stars if it has served you in the way that I would like to believe that it has. That will definitely help me out. It will allow many more listeners to discover the page, and it will allow for the growth of the community. And let's dive in. Actually, a couple of housekeeping announcements that I need to mention. I think I mentioned in the last episode that I am on Clubhouse, and it's going great. It's going amazing. I love it. I love just listening in and chiming in whenever I'm in a group of people who just inspire me to grow. I love that. I feel at home in that space, and Clubhouse has made that space very easily accessible to me. You just need to just join and listen. You know, I drive a lot when I drop my kids and pick them up. And really for a lot of things, we live a little further out from a lot of things. So Clubhouse has been my companion aside from the podcasts I listen to and the audiobooks that I listen to. And especially in our community, I say the Ethiopian, Eritrean, Habesha community, I used to think there weren't a lot of people who do the kind of things that inspire me and put me just on fire, set me on fire. Okay, either way. But there are a lot of them. I just hadn't discovered them. And it just felt at home to be there around them, listening to them, speaking to them has been amazing. And it gives me so much hope for our community here and back home with everything that's going on. I don't want to make it simplistic. It's complex. The issues are complex. But I dare believe that if each and every one of us have the opportunity and take the lead into working on ourselves, if we take it inwards instead of outwards, if we turn our attention to what's going on within us and heal and develop ourselves from the inside, I believe it's only a matter of time until these big problems really find resolution. And I believe that really is the only way to go. But we're not talking that right now. I'm just saying Clubhouse is awesome. And if you're not on there, get on there. I have a club there. Well, a Clubhouse club, like a group thing that I formed called The Unchainers. If you're listening, you are one, okay? Don't overthink it. You are an unchainer. If you are trying to figure out what your patterns are, learn from your past, let it go, stay in the present, but have vision for the future. If you're doing all of these things, you are an unchainer and you belong in that club. So please go on there. And every Friday, 10 o'clock, we talk about just different topics. I invite some speakers and we just share ideas. It's Amazing. So that's really the only housekeeping announcement that I have. So values, you guys, values. I love talking about values because I've learned so much about them in the past few years. I was able to apply these lessons into my life, and I continue to do that because none of this is a one-time thing. None of what we do, the Unchaining, is a destination where you arrive and you're like, okay, I'm done. What do I do now? It's a process. It's life itself. How we live it is this. Unchaining is how we live it until the day we're not breathing anymore. And I continue to apply these lessons and these insights, these pieces of wisdom in my life. And that's why I get really excited about it, because values are really the building blocks of who we are, what we do, what we set out to do, and how we go on about it. Values are that important. If air is to lungs, blood is to the heart, and both of those are to life, to a living body, values are to the essence of being a human being on earth, to having a purpose, to having a dream, to having fulfilling relationships. Values are essential. You can think of values as the roadmaps. Well, really, one, right? The roadmap. Your values take you where you want to go. Your values allow you to live the way you want to live. That's why they are so important. I'm actually really surprised that my intuition hasn't offered until now that I raise it as a podcast topic. But hey, better late than never. And I actually believe that this time is the perfect time, because whoever could be listening right now, you probably need to hear something in this podcast today that's going to shift something for you, that's going to make you think of your life and your values and where you're going in a different way, and give you some tangible tools to apply into resonating and being one and in alignment with your values. So what are values? I know I gave you some metaphoric definitions, but really, values are one's judgment of what's important in life. What do you think is important in life? The regard that, so you're regarding something, that something is held to deserve. The principles by which we live. These are values. Doesn't that sound huge? Yeah. That's because it is huge. The principles by which we live. Imagine you don't have principles. Imagine you're in a forest and you don't have a compass. You don't know where you're going. You're lost. You don't know where north is, south is, east is, west is. It's only a matter of time until you tire, you get exhausted, you get hungry, or through all the commotion and confusion, you get eaten by some wild animal. You are lost without a compass in the middle of the woods if you've never been there before and you know your way around. But life is like the woods. We really have never been here before unless some of you have reincarnated and you used to be humans. Then please send me a DM. I'd like to bring you on the podcast. But in all seriousness, we are discovering new woods all the time in our lives, in different areas, in different age brackets that we sail through. So without values, we are lost. Whenever you are happy, whenever you experience that feeling and you feel aligned, your values, they were probably being honored. Whenever you felt sad, angry, misaligned, then that is a pointer towards some value you hold that was probably being taken away or threatened. That's how close our values are to us. I know I explained all the importance, but then I want to go into depth about the why. Because it doesn't matter whatever tools I give you or I recommend. It doesn't matter if I tell you how you realign with your values or how you even find them if you haven't really considered them so far with the seriousness that they deserve. If you don't truly realize how important they are, if you don't get the why, then you're not going to be serious and disciplined about finding them, realigning with them, asking yourself questions about them, and then implementing them. How do I then apply them to my life? It's one thing having values, but then how do you turn them into action? So that's why I'm going to spend a little more time giving you more reasons. I'm going to tell you why. Why do we need to be clear about our values? We use values to understand what motivates us and what drives us. How many of you guys have been trying to adapt some new behavior, some new habit, but lack the motivation to go through? I'm raising my hand here. Nobody's looking at me here, but I've done that so many times. What drives me, what motivates me, I didn't really know for a very long time. That was because I didn't pay attention to values, to my values. This allows us, understanding what motivates and drives us through our values, this allows us to set goals, to prioritize when we are overwhelmed. And aren't most of us overwhelmed right now with everything that's going on? But knowing that sense of importance, knowing that sense of value allows us to still be prioritizing things and to be motivated towards achieving our goals. They help us grow and develop. Our values are that important. And without growth and development, we're as good as dead. We could be breathing, we could be eating, we could be, physically growing, but we're not unchaining without our values. We're not transforming without knowing them and applying them. They help with the decisions we make, because the decisions we make are a reflection of our values and our beliefs. And we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between beliefs and values, but them too, and a few other things, are the ones that directly relate to the kind of decisions that we make. Are they fear-based decisions? Are they conscious decisions? Do they take us backwards into the past? Do they move us forward into the future? So values are so essential for that, because they are also habit and behavior predictors. Values show you what a person is most likely to repeat as far as a habit is concerned. And then pattern, right? We are merely the products of our patterns, and whatever it is that we repeat, whatever news you follow repeatedly, that's who you are. Whatever eating habits you repeat, that's who you become. Whatever types of social media accounts you follow and you repeat consuming that information, that's who you are. So even in those decisions that you make, your values are showing. Our values help us find our purpose. I did a little poll thing on my Instagram page once about, what I should do an online course about, which is something that I'm working towards. And majority people said finding my purpose. Majority people said, I want to know why I'm on this earth. I know I have a calling. I know I have a purpose. Some of them were skeptical about it, but something in them, a yearning, was telling them that needed to be addressed. And finding this purpose is so important for us. As humans, we've evolved along millennia, and we used to be worried about what to eat and whether we were safe or whether we were going to survive. But now that we don't have to really worry about that, we are on to these secondary desires and needs, the need to connect, the need to be loved and approved and appreciated, and then the need to have a purpose, to make an impact, to live in alignment with that which we believe we're put on this earth to achieve. And through our spirituality, that also has a deeper meaning. What did God, Allah, the universe, what did that which brought me here, that power, all-knowing power, set or intend for me to be achieving here Am I living it? Am I aligned? Your values take you there. Your values check whether you are there or not in the first place. And if you're not, then your values guide you there. Our motivation goes wherever our core values go. If a certain value is deeply hidden and ignored, then there's your motivation, non-existent. If a value is discovered and exposed in a good way and honored in action, then you're motivated to do it, to follow it. You get clarity if you're aligned with your values, clarity of your decisions. You get freedom of choice. You realize that there is a lot of ways to live. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of things you could be doing right now. But the ones you choose to do, the ones you choose to be engaged in, the kind of people you choose to be around are the ones that align with your values, that complement your values and not the other way. And it goes on. The list goes on. Values help us determine who we want to be around, who we want to work with, or who we want to team up with. Who do we want to share our lives with? Who do we want to fall and remain in love with? They create cohesion in a group or in a couple situation. These are values. When they are shared, they bring unity. They bring combining resources and wisdom and intuition, which then sets you up for success, even in the relationship, but also success in your individual journeys. They also help us clear out clutter because if you know what you want, you also automatically know what you don't want, right? You can also begin from the other side. I don't like starting in a negative type of fashion. I don't like to begin with what I don't want. But sometimes if I'm foggy and not really know where I'm going, I can also go with, how do I not want to feel? Who do I not want to be around? Then what does that say about my values, right? There were times in my past where I stayed in situations where my intuition was screaming at me like, leave, don't be here. You're not supposed to be here. There are values that are being tarnished right in front of you. But I didn't listen because I didn't know that I had those values, and I didn't know that I could choose, and I didn't know that I could walk away. There was obviously and absolutely a purpose to me staying, because then I now have this zeal towards protecting my values and I can teach about it too. But at the time, there was that misalignment of values. So it's okay if you start from saying, this is clutter in my life. This is toxic. Talk about social media. You can start by saying, I don't want to follow this girl. She just, she has these toxic vibes. I don't want to follow her because I get negative energy. I get catabolic energy whenever I see something she posts, right? Or this is distracting me. Maybe I shouldn't be watching this right now. Maybe I shouldn't be binge watching Netflix right now because my value is that and it doesn't align with what I'm doing right now. Our values do all of this by helping us understand who we are. And that is the most sacred, the most important journey in our lives, is the journey to know who we are, to really understand our true identities, our true selves, not the plethora of different titles and identities and descriptions that we've collected along the way through domestication, through, our challenges, our failures, not those, like the deeper seated desires and natures. We can then understand others through them. We can then understand others through their values. We can then try and avoid misunderstandings because we understand that person is operating with a different set of values. It doesn't make their values worse off than mine. It definitely doesn't make my values better than theirs. It doesn't. Most likely, we may even have 1 or 2 or 3 or more shared values. But when we think in terms of values, we judge and assume less. we are more curious. Why could she be acting this way? What does she value? What is she communicating with me about what she values? Why did he respond in that way? What is he communicating with me about what he values? We're not saying this to judge, but we're saying this to understand and then have the freedom to decide. Our values reflect our needs. They help us how to best meet our needs, how to best ask for others to meet our needs, if that's the case. Our values increase our self-confidence, the self-knowing, the self-approval that comes from knowing your values and then putting them into action, being in alignment with them. It just increases the way you show up in life and in work and in your relationship. You're more confident because your sense of self has increased. Our values help us connect with joy, our inner compass, whether or not we are living the life of our true selves or the life that we desire. That is our litmus test. So are we connected with joy? Are we not connected with joy? If we are feeling and connected with joy, then our values are being honored, and the vice versa is also true. If we're not, the other way is also true. Our values help us adapt to change as well, because values are not fixed. Values can change, they can evolve, they can grow. So they can help us adapt to different circumstances in our lives. They can also be permanent. Yes, we can have permanent values. There are these basic permanent values as human beings. We have safety, security, survival. Survival is reproduction, sex, making sure that we continue to live. These are natural instincts that are within us, and therefore we value them. Security. Am I safe? Am I secure? Safety. Are top values and permanent values for all of us. They are hardwired into our brains through genetics and biology and experience and all of those. Yes, there are some exceptions where people sacrifice themselves for a certain different type of value, harm themselves, or they put themselves in harm's way, not caring about their survival, security, or safety. And they're doing that because there's some other value that is higher for them. Let's learn just a couple of facts about values. Values, like I mentioned earlier, are not rigid. They are not fixed. They change. Our needs and scope of vision change. Our priorities change, and therefore our values will also change. Whatever we valued when we were babies or toddlers or teens aren't things that we value right now. Whatever we value as parents could be different from what we valued before we had kids. Values can be created, influenced, and changed experiences by culture, by people, not just time. You don't just change values as you grow older or grow up, but people around you could also influence your values. Culture, domestication can influence your values. And we're going to talk about values and beliefs, because I'd like to inspire you to make a conscious decision to shift from a belief-based decision-making to a value-based decision-making. Beliefs are really assumptions. These are assumptions that we hold to be true. Beliefs are ways that we interpret reality. It's like wearing a pair of glasses, and whatever you see is going to be tinted through those glasses. We see reality through them. Beliefs can be a good system to live life through. They could get things done. They could, give us a great alignment with life. But are they dependable? Why do I believe in this thing? Is it really mine? Is this belief mine? Is it consciously chosen or simply inherited? We can ask the same questions about values, but with beliefs, it's highly likely that it is based on an assumption that we have either taken from someone else or made ourselves. So is this belief valid for me right now in this season? Is it certain? So most times beliefs tend to fail us when it comes to complex situation or the uncertainty of life, when we're faced with things that we haven't predicted or expected, because beliefs are based on assumptions. Because something has happened in such a way in the past, or because someone has told me repeatedly that this happens for this reason, then it's going to happen the same way, or it's going to be for the same reason. But it's not always like that. Life takes us through turns and different incidents that baffle us, that make us say, that's not what I thought should happen or could happen. We have beliefs. They have sustained us for a long time, even as humanity. The things that we valued were safety, survival, and security. But we are at a place where we don't really need to worry about those. So now we have different values, purpose, the connection, all of those things. If we don't get our basic needs met and we don't get to explore the world or expose ourselves to other beliefs, if we don't make the effort to grow, then we're going to end up making decisions based on the beliefs. We're going to continue making those kind of decisions. When do we begin to shift? When our safety, security, and survival have been met, then we can face this complex world, ambiguous world, through a different pair of glasses. And those are values. These are going to be conscious. These are going to be chosen values that take us forward from more of a belief-based decision-making to a value-based decision-making. And we can go from inherited to chosen. We can go from customary or habitual to mindful and conscious. Values can also be either fear-based or conscious-based. You can have a value that sounds good, but when you explore it, you find out it's based on fear. For example, if I ask you, what's your value? And you say, peace. I value peace. And I ask you, tell me more about that. How does that show up in your life? How do you put that value into action? You say, well, whenever my husband does something I don't like, I just leave the house. I just turn around, slam the door, walk away because I value peace. That's clearly a fear-based value. You have chosen a value that comes from a place of avoiding, that comes from a place of assumption too. There's probably a belief in there that you haven't questioned. Probably a belief in there that says, in order to keep the peace, I have to avoid conflict. That is a belief. Now we can sit in a session and I can show you through asking you empowering questions how that is not serving you, how that is not truly your value. Another example, so maybe like a conscious-based value could be, I value connection. I value connection because through connection, I learn and I grow. In a relationship, with friends, with my clients, connection matters so much to me. It's one of my top values. And that is a conscious-based value because I consciously chose it. Because it describes me. It describes where I want to go. It describes the kind of relationships I want to form. I didn't say I value connections because if people don't connect with me, then it makes me feel inadequate. That would be a fear-based way of choosing that value. So whenever we choose our values, we have to be conscious that they are conscious values. They're conscious-based, not fear-based. Another way you can identify fear-based values is they are based on you having to do something. You say, I have to do this. I should do this. I must do this. There's no joy. There's no I want to. There's no I choose to. There's no choice there. So this will be a great gateway into determining or finding your values or realizing what your values are. Trying to identify whether it's a fear-based or a conscious-based value is a way for you to assess the values you already have. And now, how do we find out our values? What if we've never really thought about it? The best way to find your values is check your feelings. Ask, how do I feel when I do certain things, or when I talk to certain people, or when I consume certain information? How do I feel? When am I the most proud? Maybe you're engaged in doing something, or maybe you're watching someone else do something. When do you have those sensations of happiness and joy and pride? When do I feel the most aligned, the most fulfilled, most satisfied? These are great questions to ask to find your values. You can also, like I said earlier, go from the place of when do I feel the opposites of these feelings that I just stated, and also go from there. But when you ask that question of when do I feel sad or misaligned, you ask what value could be threatened in that situation? What value could be violated in that situation? And with the values that you find, or the values that you already have, you got to ask yourself, are they mine? Because values could still be at the risk of going the way of beliefs, inherited, simply unconsciously copied or taken from other people, parents, culture, people around us, you name it. Was I taught to value this? Was I told to value, made to value this, or not value this? Is it mine? For example, you may think you value super high productivity and achievement. You may think you value achieving the degrees, the certificates, the milestones. You may think you value achievement or productivity. Ask yourself, was this really mine? Or was this the product of my domestication? Or was this my parents? You may think you value selfless service or sacrifice. You may write it as one of your top 10 values, top 5, maybe top 2. But ask yourself, was this mine? Or was this planted into me by the natural process of domestication? You may think you value people's opinion, and you may hold it in high regard and high importance. If, for me to believe I do well in life, people need to have that opinion about me. You may value praise. Was it yours? Is it yours? Then pick out your top 10 values. There are resources online that can help you. Just Google list of values and you'll get, a PDF somewhere with a list of just all sorts of different values. And try and rate yourself or the importance of each value when it comes to you and what you want. And in this process, don't overthink it. Don't judge it. Don't say, oh my God, I'm supposed to value family. This should be like top 5. I'm a mom. But it's not right now. Don't judge yourself. This is a process. This is a journey. This is a journey of discovery. Be curious about the things you find. Judgment is a repellent. Judgment demotivates you from pursuing something or going forward with an action. Be curious about it, but don't judge it. Don't overthink it. Don't say I should have or I should. That's fear-based. And you can also merge some like values together. Like, for example, philanthropy and service. You could just merge them together as service or giving. The aim is to rate yourself, to rate how important these values are to you so you can have a better understanding of where to go from there. And ask yourself, which of these values is a priority or are a priority right now? If I could just get one of these, if I could just satisfy one of these values, which one would I pick? And which one would I pick now for this season of my life? If you are a stay-home mom and valuing family and your kids and being of service to them is very important to you, you may find a value that sounds like it's a clashing value because it needs all your time and resources and nothing's going to be left for family. Don't judge that. Explore that and ask yourself questions like, which value takes the priority right now. And be very watchful of those values that may contradict, especially in the moment that you're in. These could be personal or communal. You could have contradicting values with your community. You could have contradicting values with your spouse. Be conscious of those values, and not all of the values that you find are your top 5 would be reinforcing one another. And that's okay. This is an opportunity for you to dig deeper into why. What does this mean? What does me valuing that look like in my life? How would me valuing this show up in my day-to-day life? What habits would I then show, or what habits would I then engage in if this were a priority value for me right now? And these questions will get you closer and closer to this deep understanding of what truly, 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 truly matters to you, what truly moves you in that moment, in that stage of your life. This can also help out in figuring out value clashes with your spouse. You can get to a place where there is harmony or balance between the values that are seemingly opposites. For example, you could value safety of the kids, of you, your family. You could value it so much that it may clash with your spouse's value of adventure and thrill-seeking or fun. On the surface, those two might be opposites or contradicting values. But when you come at them, at this situation, with curiosity and questions instead of judgment, you will create room to see the best in both values. And you will create opportunities to honor both values. Okay, on our way to go indoor skydiving, we make sure that safety is priority. When we get to the skydiving, we make sure that everything is where it should be, that safety checks are, if we need to ask the people if they've done what they needed to do, whatever, these are the set of questions that we're going to ask. So you're going to have the experience where your husband's values or your spouse's values are being honored. But then that doesn't mean that your value of safety is going to be ignored. That kind of compromise can also be used within you if you have seemingly contradictory values in that moment of your life. I sincerely hope that was very helpful for you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your attention. Please share this podcast. And I will see you next week with another episode. And don't forget to support by liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing with your family and friends. Thank you so much, and see you with the next episode.